So we're very pleased today, as our special ECOS community call gets underway, to have with us today Dr. Alexandra Masako Goossens-Ishii and also Hayato Yamashita and Nobuyuki Asai, who will be presenting an overview of SGI and their engagement with the United Nations and some of the most recent developments, such as their new app, Mapting, for tracking actions to support the Sustainable Development Goals. Also, we'll be hearing a little bit about their Hope and Action exhibit, which has been developed in conjunction with the Earth Charter Association. So I think you're all very familiar with SGI, and I will now turn it over to, I think, Alexandra. You will be giving kind of the overview for those folks who are not familiar with the history of SGI's involvement with the United Nations, which goes back to the 1980s, as I understand.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Mark. Thank you very much. And I think, yes, thank you, Hayato, starting to share the presentation. And so I'm Alexandra. I work for Soka Gakkai International, the Office for UN Affairs that is based in Geneva, one of them based in Geneva. And so I'm just going to give maybe a brief overview of the SGI and maybe really the history of the movement, and indeed the history of the engagement with the UN and our current engagement. And then Hayato and Nobuyuki are going to take over and present our the tools, as you mentioned, that we've developed from a non-formal educational perspective. So to start with, the Soka Gakkai is a global community-based Buddhist organization with a membership of over 12 million people around the world that promotes peace, culture, and education, and center really on the respect for the dignity of life, which really seeks to empower individuals towards positive global change. The teachings upheld by Soka Gakkai belong to the tradition of Buddhist humanism that originated with Shakyamuni on the Indian subcontinent. And the core value is really the respect for the dignity of life and of all human beings. The roots of the Soka Gakkai, so Soka Gakkai, which literally means Society for the Creation of Value, date back to 1930 in Japan, when two school teachers, Tsunesaburo Makiguchi and his colleague Josei Toda, founded an organization dedicated to promoting educational reform. And really at the core of Mr. Makiguchi's approach to education was the happiness of the individual. He had educational ideas which he summarized, or which he gathered in a theory, and his theory is the theory of value creation, in Japanese Soka, which underlies really his pedagogy. And these have been expounded in his work, Soka Kyoiku Taikei, which means the theory of value creating pedagogy, in 1930. This work was focused on the development of independent thinking and the unlimited potential of every child. And his views, of course, then went against the logic of the militarist government of the time. So during World War II, he was imprisoned with his disciple Josei Toda by the Japanese militarist government. And Mr. Makiguchi died in prison. And after World War II, the second Soka Gakkai president, Josei Toda, rebuilt the lay Buddhist organization in Japan. And really, as a pacifist, Mr. Toda was determined to rid the world of misery. And he really believed that this idea of global citizenship could help achieve that end. Now, in terms of environment, so Buddhism looks at the interconnectedness of all things. And respect for the environment is a principle that really goes back to the beginning of Buddhism. And for instance, we know that Shakyamuni Buddha taught not to cut down trees unnecessarily, and also not to destroy seeds. And so from the Buddhist principle, it's called the oneness of self and environment. In Japanese, it's called Eisho Funi, as you can see on the screen. And the Chinese character Sho means life, and E means environment, and Funi means inseparable, as you can see. Literally, Funi means two, but not two. So it means that although the self and environment appear to be two, they are actually profoundly connected. And so profoundly, there is a oneness. And so this really is at the core of the positive message. The positive message that is at the core of this principle of Eisho Funi is that really it shows us that people can influence and reform their environment through an inner change. So that is the root philosophy. And based on that, so we've developed several activities, and the peace activities of the Soka Gakkai date back, as mentioned, to the 1980s. So in 1975, the Soka Gakkai International was formed as a global association. And for over 30 years, since the 1980s, the SGI annual peace proposals have been written by the president of the SGI, Taisaku Ikeda, and have been sent to the UN. And they really present ideas grounded in Buddhist humanism to respond to global issues. As an NGO, the SGI has been in consultative status with the UN ECOSOC, so the Economic and Social Council, since 1983. With really a focus on awareness raising and non-formal education on a range of issues. So in the area of peace and disarmament, a key aim has been promoting the abolition of nuclear weapons. So it was a great moment of rejoice after many efforts when the Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons was finally entered into force on 22nd of January this year. And then in the field of sustainable development and climate change, the focus is also on education as a means of empowerment, really encouraging individual and joint action. And other areas of activity include human rights education, gender equality, and women's empowerment especially. And from the SGI perspective, is really the belief that it's important to revitalize and strengthen the role of the UN while really promoting civil society participation and really seeing this global solidarity of ordinary citizens as something vital to build a peaceful and sustainable world. Now, in terms of our activities relating to climate and environment advocacy at the UN, we've been carrying them from a social justice and an interfaith perspective. So we're joining the work of several networks addressing climate justice issues at the UN, including the Geneva Interfaith Forum on Climate Change, Environment and Human Rights, the Interfaith Liaison Committee to the UNFCCC, and also the Working Group on Human Rights and Climate Change. And as part of these groups, we've been advocating for the establishment of a new, in the Human Rights Council in Geneva, for the establishment of a new mandate, of a special rapporteur mandate, of a new mandate really focusing only on climate change and human rights that does not exist for the moment at the Human Rights Council. So that really there can be a mechanism that really promote a rights-based approach to climate action as well. And also, we've been joining a global campaign that has now more than 1,000 civil society organizations, indigenous peoples, social movements, local communities joining, that is calling for the right, so the human right to a healthy environment to be recognized. Many states actually already recognize that in the constitution, in their constitution throughout the world. It doesn't mean that it's always really implemented, but the campaign has been pushing for this global recognition now to happen at the universal level, so that really from the United Nations, it really sends a clear message that this right is really a universal right of everyone, and that the time for it is really now. In terms of action for climate empowerment, which is a part of the climate negotiations and the climate convention, which is really focusing on education and other pillars such as public participation, public awareness, which is really what ECOS is centered on. We are also working with the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights, which is based in Geneva, and which is also starting to really create relations with the process of ACE, Action for Climate Empowerment, that is within the climate negotiations, to really link this need of the respecting or promoting the right to public participation, public awareness, and for people to be really able to have meaningful participation in decision-making that relates to climate and environment. So with this, I conclude this part of our engagement at the UN in terms of advocacy, and I will now give the floor to Hayato, who will introduce in more detail some of the informal educational tools that we've developed in partnership, as you mentioned, with Charter International, especially. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. From here, page doesn't. I cannot change the slide. Right.
If not, you can just stop sharing and start sharing again, maybe the screen.
Oh, yeah. Oh. Oh. Okay. So thank you, Alex. So from here, I'd like to introduce SGI's non-formal education activities. Speaking of our exhibition showing activities, SGI and Earth Charter International have had a partnership since the launch of Earth Charter in the year of 2000. In 2002, we developed the first exhibition titled Seeds of Change. Then in 2002, we renewed it and created the Seeds of Hope exhibition, which was shown at the public space in 40 countries. Last year, we just released the Seeds of Hope and Action, Soha exhibition, which is the third exhibition and available online. We are utilizing the ESD framework. It is not just about knowledge and information. It reminds us that too much knowledge focused on creating a sense of crisis can leave us overwhelmed, feeling paralyzed, and even in denial. Meanwhile, we believe that through discussion, dialogues, and sharing feelings with others, one can gain enough courage and hope to face global issues and take action. In this sense, the exhibition is designed to be used for promoting dialogues among viewers and generating hope and action. The updated Seeds of Hope and Action exhibition has 24 panels consisting of 5 sections: Inspire, Learn, Reflect, Empower, and Act and Lead. The last part of Act and Lead section was newly added on the latest version. So I will briefly introduce each section. So the first section is Inspire. Here we show some quotes from different faith traditions, stressing interconnectedness with each other. Quotes from indigenous people are also introduced, and here is an example. So this is a quote from Audrey Shenandoah, a grandmother of the Onondaga Nation. It says, "There is no word for nature in my language. Nature in English seems to refer to that which is separate from human beings. It is a distinction we don't recognize." Next, the second section is Learn. We have total four panels bringing an opportunity to learn about the global crisis and the response and the facts about biodiversity loss and climate change, highlighting the root causes such as greed and selfishness. Then we introduced the SDGs. On the left side, you can see the new panel on the climate emergency. And on the right side, you can find the statistics about biodiversity loss and inequality. And also, we kept this stock photo from the previous exhibition, as seeing it trapped in plastic made a big impression on kids who saw a previous version of the exhibition. The third section is Reflect. This section reflects upon the causes underlying global issues and how to combat powerlessness and broaden our compassion. Here we introduced our charter as a statement of ethics and principles underpinning sustainable living. In the face of overwhelming problems and situations, what can one person achieve? Stephen Rockefeller, chair of the Earth Charter Drafting Committee, says, "We all have a choice. We can allow ourselves to be paralyzed by despair over the negative trends, or we can join the many courageous people of goodwill who are trying to build a better world." On the right hand, we introduce 4 concrete initiatives using the Earth Charter in Brazil, Germany, the United States, and Spain. The fourth section is Empower, which has 6 stories that demonstrates the power of one. We call these 6 Seeds of Hope and Action. These are 6 stories from Marshall Islands, Mexico, South Sudan, Bangladesh, Lebanon, and Brazil. These are the ordinary people who took action and created positive changes in their community. Finally, we have the section of the Act and Lead. The final section emphasizes the power of youth. The 3 panels of this section have introduction of global youth leaders, such as Greta Thunberg, and they show how they started their own action, which ended up leading global movements. Also, it helps young viewers to brainstorm their unique ideas of action, and it gives them some concrete example, such as eating locally produced food, avoiding single-use plastics, and so on. On the final page of this section, we have a picture of a tree of ideas with a QR code, through accessing which viewers can share their ideas for action. We are collecting actions taken by participants and see how our exhibition impacted on their mindsets and behaviors. The exhibition was complete in the end of last year, but there was no chance to display it physically due to the pandemic. That's why we decided to employ online formats. In the last week of February, we organized launching event of the Soha exhibition, 2 times in English and 1 time in Spanish. We briefly showed the content and had a guest speech from Mr. Sajid Iqbal, who is featured in the exhibition. He shared his own detailed story. Also, we organized a group discussion of 3 to 4 people in each group and asked participants to discuss 2 things. First is one example of how they have turned their values and conscience into action. And second is ideas or seeds of hope and action they want to plant. At the beginning of the event, participants looked nervous and quiet, but their facial expression and atmosphere of the event completely turned into positive and energetic after the guest speech and the interaction among participants. This gave us rich suggestions for our future activity. We plan to use this format and continue to hold showing events. Also, the Soha exhibition was digitally displayed in a public school in Mumbai, India. Before the event, school teachers gathered 12 student volunteers and explained about panels and taught them how to introduce it to other students. On the online event day, these volunteers became a guide and explained each panel to 700 students. This is a great example of peer learning and a student-led awareness-raising activity. So from here, I would like to introduce another tool of our non-formal education activity. In 2016, 1 year after the adoption of 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development at the UN, Alexandra International and Soka Gakkai started a new youth-led project for developing an app which can educate and engage youth on the SDGs, and we created a Mapting app in 2017 after a series of discussions. Mapting is a mobile participatory app to educate and engage people, especially youth, on the SDGs. It will allow users to not only discover the SDGs, but also contribute to promoting sustainable actions and projects through a very simple and entertaining act, such as picture and video sharing. We newly added Chinese, French, and Japanese, in addition to English and Spanish in 2020. Now, Mapting became much inclusive and user-friendly. Co-produced by SGI and ECI, Mapting is based on the core belief that one individual's action can make a difference, and the desire to engage people and inspire them to act by showing that our future holds great promises. Conversations about the future of our planet often emphasize the problems or perilous trends we are facing. With Mapting, we want to change the focus of the conversation and show that solutions and positive actions exist. Here are four features of Mapting. First, share. We invite users to take pictures and videos of every action or project that will help achieve the SDGs and share them on the app. Second, browse. We give users a way to see each of these solutions. All they have to do is open the world map to see what has already been done to achieve the SDGs around them or worldwide, or browse the app feed to see all pictures and videos. This is an example of actions on the app feed. Third, interact. We create a community and allow for users to interact. The goal here is to create synergies. It is to have people come together, exchange ideas, tips, ask questions, and why not decide to collaborate or coordinate something. Fourth, discover. Mapting is made in such a way that each step from the homepage to the photo sharing process offers an opportunity to learn about SDGs and the principle of the Earth Charter. Users can also click on the global goals icon to find out more about each of the 17 SDGs goals, or on the Earth Charter icon to learn about fundamental values and principles to foster more sustainable ways of living. Here you may find an example of one of the Earth Charter principles. We chose to combine SDGs and Earth Charter because they are very complementary, and because put together, they offer a deeper understanding of what is needed to lead the transition to more sustainable, just, and peaceful societies. SDGs are the targets where we need to go, and the Earth Charter is more about the fundamental values we need to get there. Each principle gives a deeper understanding of the SDGs. We need to understand what are the values and principles to adapt if we want to reach the targets. And we need the targets to understand what we need to change. In a sense, we think that SDGs and Earth Charter are inseparable and greatly complementary. Now that you have a good picture of everything we put in the app, the only remaining question is, how do we connect it all? How does it work? Well, this is the very easy part. So first, you open the camera by clicking on the SDG icon related to the action you want to take picture or video of. Second, you make sure that goals matches the photo you are about to take by reading the banner. Third, you free the artist within you and take a great picture. Fourth, you add a short description to give some context, and you can select witness or participant, and you share your picture on the app. Finally, you unlock the Earth Charter principle directly related to your last picture and learn more about the fundamental values underlying the goals. So it's easy. And I'd like to introduce how one can utilize Mapting in educational institutions or in other educational settings. Carola Pedaleschi, a psychology professor at Miami-Dade College, used Mapting in her classes. She gave assignments and asked her students to make posts of their sustainable actions, and the students completed their homework through posting their actions on Mapting. Here are some examples of how students made a post. You can find a student donating to the food pantry or using train to get home and so on. Also, here are some feedback from a student at the Dana College who used Mapting for the assignment. It says it's simple to use, help them find inspiration to fulfill their own SDGs, create and share new ideas regarding the Earth Charter and SDGs, and so on. I'd like to introduce another way of using Mapting. SGI has organized photo contests by using Mapting and other social media to promote SDG actions, targeting youth around the globe, and more than 500 people submitted applications. We asked applicants to share their actions and stories in any forms, including arts. Some of them created paintings, short movies, poems, song, and even magic. After the contest, we organized an online event inviting contest winners and asking them to share their stories. Here is an entry from one applicant who created a poem when he was in Senegal. I was inspired by this poem, so please allow me to read. First, the rain stopped, then the animal died. The trees came after. Lastly, men went elsewhere. Through Mapting, we were able to encourage people, especially youth, to take actions for good cause, bringing their energy and creativity. We are now exploring other ways of using this app for future programs. To conclude, what is underpinning our non-formal education tool is the power of stories of hope that aims to inspire action. These tools highlight how a single individual can initiate positive change. The Seeds of Hope and Action exhibition, for instance, encourages viewers to overcome feelings of powerlessness while stressing our interconnectedness with the rest of the community of life and the need to broaden the sphere of compassion and concern. In recent years, an impressive number of people have become more aware of the climate crisis, thanks especially to the joint action of young people around the world. However, this has also led to increasing feelings of ecological grief and anxiety, and a sense of powerlessness due to the overwhelming and complex nature of this multifaceted crisis. A recent webinar titled Education for Sustainable Development and the Climate Emergency, Bending the Curve for Climate Change, organized by UNESCO, concluded that education needs to balance an emphasis on the crisis with way of giving hope, which enable people to engage. It is important for people to feel empowered, to be given opportunities for action, and to be encouraged not to give up. While academic research is increasingly measuring the impact of the power of climate action-oriented storytelling to inspire change, we've started to try and measure the impact of our tools. In the case of our previous exhibitions, we've conducted a survey of the viewers after they saw it. However, we are now starting to collaborate with researchers to develop better qualitative measurements. And this is all about our presentation. And if you want to find the Seeds of Hope and Action exhibition, it's available online. And also you can download the Mapting app from this link. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.